but it was to do with Andrew Wiggins and his game going into this season. Obviously, a pretty sporadic year for Wiggs in 22-23, playing just 37 regular season games, missing time with injury, missing time with the personal issues, and of course getting that rib injury in the playoffs, which really hampered him late as well. But obviously, from a Warrior perspective, plenty of optimism around Wiggs and what he can provide this season with greater availability. And obviously, with that, the team should just be better with having Wiggs available for hopefully an extra 30 plus, maybe close to 40 games. He's been an incredibly durable player across the course of his career before last season. But just looking into some of the kind of advanced stats on Wiggs a little bit, and particularly to do with his scoring, and we know that, his development from an inefficient scorer in Minnesota to a fantastic off-ball threat, catch and shoot player with the Warriors has been absolutely outstanding, and his reputation as a player in this league has just multiplied tenfold in the positive direction, becoming an all-star in 2022, arguably being, was the Warriors' second best player in the 2022 playoffs behind Steph Curry. Absolutely fantastic. Not only that, his work on the defensive end of the ball. We all know the kind of growth that we've seen from Andrew Wiggins over the last few seasons since being traded to the Warriors in 2020. But I just wanted to go into his isolation scoring a little bit because with, Wiggs, as I said, he's gone from inefficient scorer where he was asked to do a lot in Minnesota to, an off-ball threat in Golden State where he's playing alongside Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, the playmaking of Draymond Green as well. And, for the most part, that's a great thing. The fact that Wiggs has, kind of largely removed the inefficient shots from his game, the tough contested mid-range jump shots, shots, off the dribble kind of thing. But I do think, looking at last season, I do think that the Warriors didn't utilize that element of his game enough, where by the end of the second round of the playoffs against the Lakers, and yes, Wiggs, had that rib injury, and by the end, he was really hampered by that, and he probably couldn't have helped in any way regardless. But the Warriors really lamented their lack of shot creation and shot making behind Steph Curry, and their offense just didn't produce enough against the Lakers to be able to win that series in what was, still pretty close. 6 games, a couple of those games, particularly game 1 and game 4, could have gone in the Warriors' direction and maybe the Warriors win. But the big issue was the offense right behind Steph. And I just wonder if they could have utilized Wiggs a little bit more than what they did before, obviously, the rib injury occurred. And he's no Kevin Durant, we know that. But I do think that Wiggs, being the long, athletic, the kind of talented scorer he is, I think that the Golden State Warriors could utilize him a little bit more in terms of, being able to go and get a bucket, particularly late in the shot clock when the offense is flailing, when there's not too much going. And if you look at his numbers kind of in isolation plays over the last few seasons, there's a real trend that's developing here. So if you go back to the last season, obviously, missed 45 games, we get that. But in the regular season, he was 5th in isolation plays behind Steph Curry, behind Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, and Jonathan Kuminga. Now, he shot just 26.7% on isolation plays. So not good at all. Not good. And from that, you think, well, why do we want this guy to get more isolation plays? Because it's clearly not working. Well, if you go back to the year before, Wiggs' All-Star year, second best player on the championship team. He was 3rd in isolation plays behind Steph Curry and Jordan Poole, and he shot 39.3% from the field in those situations. And then if you go back to the year before that, 2020-21, he was 2nd behind Steph and shot 47.8% from the floor in isolation plays. So basically the trend is over the last 3 seasons here is the more isolation opportunities that Andrew Wiggins gets, the more efficient from the floor that he will be in such situations. And I just think that we shouldn't pigeonhole this player because he's developed into such a fantastic off-ball threat, a catch-and-shoot guy. I don't think we should necessarily pigeonhole him into that. And him being 5th in the pecking order last season in terms of isolation plays just simply isn't right for a guy of his magnitude of talent. Now, could that shift a little bit this season with Jordan Poole going out? Maybe, but then, Chris Paul comes in and the way that he, runs the offense, his heavy pick and roll style, that's not necessarily going to lend itself to Wiggs getting more isolation opportunity. But, my whole argument here is that I think Wiggs has got a lot more in his bag than just sitting on the wing, cutting off ball occasionally and just then being ready for, wide open catch and shoot 3-point attempts. That is predominantly going to be his game, yes, but I just think, particularly late in shot clock opportunities, I think he's the guy you want to be able to go to. There's less than 10 seconds on the shot clock. There's absolutely nothing going here for the Warriors offensively. Give the ball to Andrew Wiggins, right? Let him make a play, because I think that he's still got elements of shot creation, shot making in his game that, as I keep saying, haven't been utilized with the Warriors effectively enough last season. Years before that, yes, and probably because Wiggs had to do it more in 2020-21 when Clay was obviously out, and because Jordan Poole wasn't the player that he became in his third and fourth seasons in the league. But it's just a little bit of a fascinating, I think, story to follow here as we head into this season. Is how much can Andrew Wiggins improve his scoring? And yes, we want to retain the efficiency, and that's probably the most important thing. But, I think, his 17.1 points per game last season could bump up, closer to 20 a little bit, and potentially, get back to a second All-Star berth, maybe, if that were to eventuate. So just an interesting little subplot, I think, to follow with Andrew Wiggins and the Warriors offense heading into this season.